Hello, welcome. My name is Carson Draper. I'm with Western States CAT, and we're going to go over our ET webinar. This is our intro to ET. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and connect to the trainer, and we'll just select any of these here, but just to give us a kind of good overview as to all the things that we might see on our ET, we're going to go ahead and click into the 140M motor grader and connect. So here we see that our ECMs are being detected and they're initializing. Basically, that is going to what you're going to see when you go to hook up to a machine. When you hook up to an actual piece of equipment, that's the screen you will see as the COM adapter and the machine start to work together to communicate. So we can see here, this is a summary of all the ECMs that we have. We see we're working with a 140M. Here's the serial number. It's got a C7 engine in it, as well as all of the other ECMs that we see as well. Obviously, these are computer generated, or at least fake serial numbers, right? We see transmission ECM has a serial number of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So don't take those numbers to heart, but that's exactly what you're going to see when you hook up to a machine. So we'll just go ahead and click into the Engine ECM and give it a second to initialize communication. All right. So that can take a couple minutes to sometimes hook up fully, depending on your computer and just how things are going that day. But you can see here, this is the status screen. This is the screen that my ET is set up to default go to. You could change the default startup screen, and we could talk about that later. But looking at this status screen, the first things that we could see is we could see all of the ECMs that we're connected to, as well as all the status groups that we have inside those ECMs. So what we're looking at right now is the C7, the engine ECM, and we're just looking at general data for the engine. Things like engine speed, desired engine speed, boost pressure, fuel volume, smoke limit fuel volume, torque limit fuel volume, throttle position, fuel base, fuel consumption, all of that, just general data of how the engine's running right now in this moment. Going through the status screen here, we could see things like HVAC system, steering system, whether or not there's an operator in the seat, basically. Transmission speed, all sorts of stuff. As we scroll through, we'll see all the different statuses, some of the custom status groups that have been made throughout our time using ET. And then also we can see active fault codes. So if we have any active fault codes, they'll be displayed here on the active codes button. We can also reach them up here at this little stethoscope with the clipboard looking button. That's active diagnostic codes as well. Active diagnostic codes, it displays the exact same codes as this button does here. So we can see our active diagnostic codes, our active event codes. The difference between an event code and a diagnostic code is diagnostic codes are going to talk about basically electrical faults, whereas event codes are going to talk about physical parameters that are outside of the normal. So we could see high air filter restriction. That's not necessarily an electrical problem, but that is an air filter problem, whereas air intake heater relay current above normal, that's an electrical fault condition that the ECM is detecting. So moving along with these buttons up here at the top, we can see we have active diagnostic codes, log diagnostic codes, active event codes, and logged event codes. Now the difference between, again, a diagnostic and an event code, diagnostic codes, they have an electrical fault condition. Event codes have a physical parameter that's outside of normal parameters. So again, coming into these event codes, we could see the clock manual alignment is required. So we need to manually set the time. Hydraulic pilot supply filter plugged. We got a plug filter. So those things are physical things that are happening right now in this machine that are affecting its health. This is, again, electrical conditions that the ECM is detecting through its onboard diagnostics. So a little bit different. Now just moving in, again, while this kind of gives us a loading screen, moving into differences between active and logged codes. So active codes are the ones that are happening now. Logged codes, if we come into that screen, are the codes that happened in the past. So if we're looking here, we could see we have the code, the description of the code, how many times it's happened, and depending on the engine software as well as the machine software, we could see the first time it happened as well as the last time it happened. So we could see this fuel pump relay current below normal has happened 2 times. The first time was at 777 hours. The last time was at 1,039 hours. And right now it's not currently active. So if we go back to our active codes again, it's not currently active, at least to my knowledge from when I was skimming over those codes earlier. But if we go back into this active codes page, we can see that, yep, oh, there it is right there. So this must be the second time that it's occurred, is that 162.7-5. Go back to the log codes. Let's see if that's the same one. So just again, yep, 162.7-5. So that code is currently active. I guess we could have also looked at the hours here. 1050. Last time it logged one was 1039. So it'll log that code once we basically get that condition to go away, and then once it comes back. So this has been basically, this has happened 2 times, and it's gone away on its own and then come back. And then the last one that's occurring currently is active, so it's displaying it as an active code. Moving through the rest of the buttons, we have active event codes, logged event codes. So again, same thing, physical parameters that are currently out of specification, physical parameters that were out of specification that have now been brought back into specification. Then we have our ECM summary. ECM summary page is just going to give us a ECM summary. So it's a summary of all of the ECMs. So when we first hooked up, if you remember back when we first hooked up to the display, we saw a list. It said C7, transmission, that sort of stuff. That's exactly what we see here. So we see C7, transmission, implement control, all that, as well as the part number for the software, the serial number, and then the software, or sorry, back up here, as well as the ECM part number. So the part number for the ECM, the software group part number. If it has the ECM part number, it will have the ECM part number, but software group part number can be found here, when that software was released, and then the description of that software group. So we can see software group description for here is motor grader 140M. This is software for a 140M. This is the part number, and this is the release date. As we continue down the line here, we got configuration tools. So the configuration tool is where we would go if we're trying to set configurations for our machine. So if we're running in a specific condition, like cold start aid configuration, let's say on 1, we have a cold engine parasitic load reduction installation. So let's say we do have that installed, whatever that looks like for this machine. We come here, we click change. We go to from not installed to installed. Click OK. Are you sure you want to program this parameter? Yes, I'm sure. Maybe I'm up high northern Idaho or something like that where it gets really, really cold. And we click installed, and it'll say tattletale of 1 change. So this can be good if you're trying to, maybe you've had somebody come out, they've messed with some things that you don't necessarily know. If you look at the tattletales, you can see how many times these parameters have been changed. You can see I've changed it 1 time. If I change it back, it should tattletale on me again and tell me now that I've changed it twice. So those tattletale counters will just continue to count up. So if people are coming in and changing things that they shouldn't, we on the dealer side can see that, but also you as a customer, if you have ET, you should be able to see that as well. This is the disconnect button. So if I click that, I disconnect from the machine. This is the select ECM button. So again, right when we come in here, we can see select ECM. So this is if I want to specifically be connected to the C7 or the transmission or the implement control or the other implement control, the monitoring system, or the product link. Again, most of the time we just start with the engine. That's typically where we get the most information. But if you're seeing something that you think if you're not seeing something you think you should be seeing, go ahead and come up to the ECM summary, or sorry, select ECM, and select the correct ECM there. Some things across the top, if we go to diagnostics, we could see we have, again, active and logged diagnostic codes, as well as diagnostic tests, and then we have active and logged events. If I click into diagnostic tests, that sends me to all the testing and adjusting that I could do on ET as a diagnostic tool. So that'll take me to things like ART ignition test, after treatment regeneration, or after treatment verification tests, things of that nature. We can see that this 140M isn't a tier 4 final machine because it doesn't have any of those tests, but we could see some engine tests like injector solenoid test, injection actuation pressure test, override parameters, cylinder cutout, wiggle test, that sort of thing. This would be where we use a wiggle test to maybe diagnose some harness issues, some intermittent problems. Moving from left to right, so from diagnostics to information, we have our ECM summary again, our status tool again, current totals, data logs, so we can record and view data logs, real-time graphing, prognostics download, trip segment, as well as trip reset. And some of these, again, these are going to change based off of the software, based off of the machine that you're plugged into, based off of the engine, or sorry, based off of the ECM that you're connected to. So whether you're connected to the engine or the transmission or the hydraulic control, these fields can change. So if you're trying to find something and you can't see it, make sure you're on the correct ECM for that machine to be able to access that specific field of information. So if I go down to current totals, that's going to tell me things like how much fuel's been burned, how many times the engine started, things like that. So engine starts, 594. Total lifetime engine revolutions, this is how many times it's spun in its whole life. Total idle fuel, this can be very useful for customers that are maybe concerned about how much fuel they're using just sitting on the job site. If we look at total idle fuel, we can see this grader has spent 434 gallons of fuel just sitting, doing no work. So that can be something to really look at. Ratio between total fuel and total idle fuel can be pretty important as well. Again, we can see total fuel it's burned is 3,000, and 400 of it has been at idle. So 2,600 of the fuel, 2,600 gallons of the fuel that it's burned has been working. So that can be very useful information for some of our operators and some of our owners out there. Service, go into service, we can copy configurations. Again, we can access configurations, access monitoring system. We can synchronize the service hour meters, do calibrations, put the ECM into dyno mode. We don't really need to worry about that sort of stuff. And then the rest is utilities. So we can go preferences, change our settings. We can update our CAT ET license, browse product network devices, and then a help menu. So if you have any help or need any help while you're on the job trying to use ET, this is one of my favorite resources. You can come in here and go to the contents. If I click contents, it'll open up basically the manual on how to do everything ET is capable of doing. And you can come in here and search different functions. So if I wanted to search like manual regen, I could search manual regen, manual diesel particulate filter regeneration. Tells me the purpose of the test, tells me how to access the test, tells me what it's going to look like when I see the screen, as well as the status parameters and instructions for the test. So you may be able to access that, but that's another key thing to be able to use on ET. Okay, thanks for joining me. Again, I'm Carson at Western States CAT. If you like what you see here, feel free to contact us. We're going to have a webinar on ET, so if you have any further questions or just want to see more, sign up for that, and we'll see you when you're here. Thanks.